Welcome, everybody. I am so excited to announce a new course on PDA. The most popular podcast this year, the most downloaded podcast, was my interview with Laura Kerbey all about PDA. Now, if you don't know what PDA is, it's pathological demand avoidance. And don't worry, if you missed the podcast episode, I thought I'd do a replay of that podcast. If you've already listened to this, then I need you to know something exciting. Laura has created a fabulous 2-hour deep dive course in not only what is PDA, it's what to do. It is just amazing. I learned so much listening to it myself. She just uses, as you will find out when you listen to this podcast, so many analogies and so many stories and experiences, and very much like myself, like a pracademic, which I call a practical academic. She really combines her knowledge, her practical skills, working both with families and young people to help us know what to do. So I am so excited. It's a 2-hour course. Now, I learned so much listening to these 2 hours with Laura. I just sat there going, wow, all these kids I knew, how I could have been a better educator, why things hadn't worked over the years. Anyway, so excited. If you haven't listened to the podcast, stay on now and listen. If you have and you're like, I want to learn more too, Sue, then join the course now. So it's on my e-learning website, which is elearning.suelarkey.com.au, or just go to my main Sue Larkey website and you'll see online learning and go there. I think you're going to love this course. Honestly, so good. As normal, we'll have a handout, I'll have a transcript, I'll have everything to refer back to make your learning as easy as possible, but also so you can have that information ongoing. You'll have 6 weeks to complete it, but we can always extend it at any time. My guess is you'll sit down and watch it all in one hit. It's 2 hours of wow, because I got to the end of recording it and I was like, where did the time go? So I am so excited. New PDA course. Anything that I think for me, I go, well, I'm not an expert on this. I always want to bring you the best people in the world. And I think Laura is the best person to share with you. So hope you can join me for the course. As always, any questions, sing out. I'm always here to help. And thank you for being part of this podcast community. I really appreciate it. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Sue Larkey podcast. As I always say, you have to embrace difference to make a difference. Let's dive into today's podcast. Welcome, everybody. I am so thrilled to have Laura Kerbey here with us. She is going to be sharing with us her knowledge and expertise around PDA. Now, when I posted on Facebook, everyone was like, yes, we want to know more. And I am so excited because she is the founder of Positive Autism Support and Training and the author of The Educator's Experience of Pathological Demand Avoidance, or PDA. So any of you who don't know what PDA is, we will be using that acronym throughout this session. So it's Pathological Demand Avoidance. And Laura's book is amazing. And I know lots of you follow me on Facebook would have seen me sharing it a lot lately. But welcome, Laura.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It's lovely to be here.
So exciting. And as you can hear, Laura's in are you in London? Where are you?
I'm not far from London. I'm about 45 minutes from London, yeah.
Oh, fantastic. So we had a bit of trouble trying to find a good time for both of us. So thank you so much for making time in your busy schedule.
Thank you for having me.
It's wonderful. So tell us, why did you write this book?
There's a few reasons, really. I think probably the main reason and the most important reason for me was, unfortunately, I think PDA's got a really bad reputation. There's a lot of real negatives associated with PDA. People often assume that a young person with PDA is going to be incredibly challenging to work with, even violent. And in the UK, when I'm speaking to families, I hear on a really regular basis that their child has been diagnosed with PDA, and then they found a school that they think could really work for their child. And then when they've approached that school, the schools say, oh, sorry, we don't take children with PDA, or we don't work with children with PDA, which is it's just awful that's even happening.
I can't believe. So schools they can just say we can't accommodate a child.
Yeah, they can say we can't meet children. Sometimes they'll just say, oh, we don't feel that we can meet your child's needs. But sometimes parents have been told we don't take children with PDA. And for me, that's just wrong. I wanted to change that. And I think the book actually starts with a confession that PDA used to scare me. Like when I first started working, I was initially an assistant head teacher in a specialist school for children who were autistic. And that was the first time that I had really come across this profile. And it used to terrify me. And the confession in the book is very honest that I was being hurt, my staff were being hurt. The days were sometimes dictated by some of these learners. And then I just had this absolute revelation. There was nothing wrong with these children. It was the environment and it was me. It was everything that I was doing was wrong. So that was creating this huge kind of challenge. And then there's a second confession in the book, which is actually when you work in education, you're not meant to have favourites, but I do, and they all have PDA, because my mindset has shifted so much away from thinking that these learners are difficult and challenging and hard work and oppositional. Then they are, honestly, when you get it right, they are the most amazing young people to work with. They're so creative and imaginative and funny. So I think that was the main reason for writing the book. I wanted to share all the positives about PDA, some of the mistakes I made as well, so that educators reading it, not just educators, anybody reading it, thinks, actually, these are amazing young people and we want to work with them.
Yeah, I wanted to interrupt you 100 times during you explaining that, because first of all, I think that confession is so important, because there'll be teachers listening today who are also scared and worried. And that comes from lack of information. And that's really why I do my podcasts and I write my blogs, and why I say, get books like your book. And I saw on Facebook, and I thought this was amazing, that a teacher said that this book was recommended to me by a parent. I truly loved it, and it helped me understand PDA. It helped my interactions with her child and my understanding. The truth is, every teacher wants to. Me too. I was getting teary when you were. Every teacher wants to help a child, and knowing the parent found the book and gave it to the teacher. And I often say that, like I had an email today from a teacher saying, we haven't got a budget to buy that behaviour solutions book. And I go, it's a $30 book. How can schools not support teachers and and people haven't got the money, but we should be providing the books, because then people can go back to it. And what I find, the book gives confidence. And what I'm hearing for you, which is why I started in autism too. I was struggling. I didn't know what I was doing. And when you get the right strategies, you get the confidence. And our children know that. These children know that how you're feeling. So
exactly. Especially children with PDA.
100%.
Children with PDA are so hypersensitive to your emotions. So if you're walking into a learning environment as a teacher or a learning support assistant, and you are feeling a bit anxious and stressed, they will 100% pick up on that. But because they're autistic, they may not be able to think, oh, they might be feeling anxious and stressed because something's happened in the staff room, or they're tired or whatever. They'll think, what have I done wrong?
Correct.
And then that instantly will increase their anxiety.
100%. I think I get two reactions from my PDA students. One is, what have I done wrong? And the other is, that teacher hates me.
Yes.
So it doesn't matter how much work you've done building rapport. If you are feeling anxious or angry and they're picking up on that emotion, they're going to assume you don't like them. And that's just, I don't know, that's just my experience. And that's where sometimes I have to get the sensory tool and calm myself.
Exactly. I do actually talk about this in the book. There's and actually I regularly share images from the book on my page, just for people who haven't read it, just to give them a little bit of insight. And there's an image of me in the book saying, shall we go outside? But the child is not hearing it in that tone. The child is perceiving that as, shall we go outside? And so that's really important. But I think the other thing is that you can be really honest about your feelings. If you've had and again, this is mentioned in the book, I went to see a child once with PDA when I'd had a very difficult morning and I was feeling very stressed and anxious. And he picked up on that straight away. And he said, Laura, is everything okay? And I said, no, not really. My son's not very well and I'm going to have to take him to hospital. And he was like, oh, okay, Laura, I really hope he's okay. And he was so lovely about it. Now, some people might say, why are you sharing that kind of personal information with one of your students? But if I hadn't said anything, if I'd sat there saying, no, I'm fine, he would have known that I was lying. He would have started to think, what is Laura doing? Sorry, what have I done to upset Laura?
Mm-hmm.
And the most important theme that runs through the book is this theme of sort of connection and trust that you have to have with someone with PDA. And that could have broken that trust. I think the other thing, though, that's really important is when we experience these emotions like anxiety or anger, which are normal human emotions, and I think a lot of children are taught that they shouldn't have these emotions and that they should be suppressed or avoided. Actually, when you can say to not just a child with PDA, but to anyone, I've not had a very good morning, I'm feeling a bit stressed, I'm going to take 2 minutes outside and just take some deep breaths so that I feel ready to teach you. You're actually role modeling such a good sort of process there, aren't you? Rather than suppress these emotions, you shouldn't be feeling them.
Absolutely. And I talk a lot about we need to talk our emotions out loud, but also
Definitely.
our internal sensory, the toilet, drink, food. A lot of my children confuse their feelings with their internal sensations. So there's nothing wrong with coming back from yard duty going, I didn't go to the toilet, I'm busting to go. You need to talk. That's okay. I can go now. So can you guys just read a book? I've just got to rush to the toilet. Or actually talking through those things. Or I got caught in a traffic jam on the way to school this morning. And the other thing I find with my PDA kids is talking about the complexity of friendships. So saying, I was catching up with a girlfriend on the weekend and she cancelled on me at the last minute. And I was really hurt by that. But actually, something had come up for her, and it wasn't that she didn't want to catch up, but she just texted me rudely and said, sorry, I need to cancel. But I found out later that, and actually I find talking through my friendships and family relationships. And as you say, a lot of people would say you shouldn't do that, but I would say you should do it, because when our children hear that, it normalizes it for them in many ways, and then they'll share with me their worries. And I think if you don't share your worries, how can you expect a child to share?
Exactly. And not only does it normalize it, but another thing that's so important to understand about PDA is that PDAs don't really see hierarchy and authority. They seek very equal, reciprocal relationships. So when you're having those conversations, you're putting yourself on an equal level, aren't you? And I think I remember when I was younger and I went to school, I thought my teachers lived at school. I literally thought that they were like these kind of higher beings, lived in school, didn't have relationships, didn't have any problems. They were just like the elite people, which we know is not
Laura,
true.
You sound like when you bump into, a lot of teachers are related to this, when you bump into one of your students, particularly in Australia, like our 5 or 6 year olds in our kindies or preppies receptions, you bump into them in the supermarket and their eyes really pop out of their head. What is she doing in a supermarket?
Exactly.
No,
So I think, again, all of this is just this connection, this trust. And one of my favorite quotes in the book is the antidote to anxiety is trust. And I think all of this is just building trust, building relationships. One of the best compliments I've ever been paid was by a young person that I've actually just finished working with him, which I'm really sad about, but it was for 4 years. And it took us about a year, really, for him to really trust me. And after a little bit of time, he said to his dad, Laura is my favourite person in the whole world. And honestly, I was like, that is the best compliment that this boy could ever have paid me. He once told me I was a turnip, which apparently is also a massive compliment. I got to his house.
I would have taken a turnip as not a compliment, so I'm glad we've clarified that.
Once I got to his house and he presented me with a label with I am a turnip written on it, and he stuck it on me. He said, that's like the best vegetable. I'm like, thank you. I've still got the label.
I love it. Now, people listening would be like, but how do I build a relationship with this child, Laura? How do I do that? I
think the simple answer to that is be as authentic as you can possibly be. PDAs have I hope I can swear, the best bullshit radar that of any humans. They will see through anything that is inauthentic, fake, forced. So just to be 100% authentic all the time. And also, like I say, remember that they do perceive themselves as their equal. So you have to present yourself as their equal as well. And I think the other thing is as well, you cannot rush that connection, that relationship. It takes as long as it takes. So one of the things, so I run past, but I'm also a director in a tutoring company that provides tutoring for young people who aren't able to go to school. In the UK, we call that AOTIS, which is educated other than in school. It's a government funded package. It's very difficult for parents to get. We've got 55 children within a tutoring service. They're nearly all PDA. And when we take on new tutors or we take on a new student and tutors start to work with them, we absolutely stress your job is not to teach at this stage, is not to teach. We don't care about teaching what they're learning. Your job at this stage is to just build up a connection with this young person. So one of the other ways, I think a really important way that you can do that is also to just enjoy talking sometimes, like just talk about their special interests. I've had sessions before where I've got in my car and thought, God, did we actually do anything today? Like, did we do any learning? Because I've just sat and listened to them talking about Minecraft or what, it could be anything, Dungeons and Dragons, fish that fight with their penises, whatever it is they want to talk to me about, I will talk to them about, and I will listen and I will learn from them. So that's another thing. The learning is so reciprocal. I've been taught. To be.
I always say you don't need to know anything about Minecraft or fish that fight with their penises. Did I hear that correct? Because this kid will tell you everything about it.
Yeah.
And I would always say that's what I like to find out off the parents before, because when I first go in, the child might be resistant. So I need to at least know a little bit about what they like.
Starting point.
Yeah, a starting point. And I think that's really important. And any teacher assistants or education support staff listening, I think that's really important to find out straight up what that child's interested in. And honestly, I would walk in with a book with that or something so visual. Oh, she likes Pokemon or Star Wars, even if you don't. It's just
a t-shirt with Pokemon on. I do think though, I just want
a turnip sticker, Laura.
A turnip t-shirt. But I do. There's a couple of little caveats with that. I think are really important to mention. I think first of all, a mistake that I have seen is where schools or tutors have tried to hijack that interest to make the young person learn. And you have to be so careful of that. And I actually wrote about this the other day, actually, because I'm neurodivergent. I have ADHD. I have a lot of autistic characteristics as well. And I have one of my special interests is dolls' houses and miniatures. I've got 2 dolls' houses. I don't care that I'm nearly 50 and I love dolls' houses.
I love it.
Tiny weeny things. If someone came around my house and said, Laura, can we look at your dolls' houses? I'd be like, oh my God, yes, come with me. And I would sit there and chat to them about my dolls' houses. And if they said, oh, Laura, why did you choose that theme for that room or whatever? And where did you get all the stuff from? I'd love to talk to them about it. If someone came to my house and said, oh, Laura, could we do a spreadsheet of money that you have spent on your dolls' houses? Let's create an Excel document. I'd be like, no. Get out. I don't even want to show you my dolls' houses now. So you have to be, you do have to be very careful in terms of you don't steal their special interest to create learning. You have to find a balance. The other thing that you do also have to be very careful of is that the interests of people with PDA can be very transient and they can change quite regularly. And again,
I was just about to warn about that too. I agree. I had it where one of my little boys was into dolphins and I didn't see him for a week and I walked in with my dolphin book and he'd moved on to whales. And of course, he then told me dolphins were stupid, even though a week before he loved them, you know. And
there's a couple of examples of that in the book as well. And particularly one of my colleagues who had a session with a boy that we both worked with, that session had been totally everything was about pirates. So they did all the learning linked to pirates. So the next time the tutor went round there, he surprised the boy by going in full pirate fancy. Had to parked down the road because there was nowhere to park outside. Walked down the street, lots of traffic, full pirate regalia, knocked on the boy's door, and he opened the door and he was like, why have you come dressed like that? And then the tutor had to sit and do the entire session dressed as a pirate.
For the Australians listening, I'm imagining Captain Feathersword from the Wiggles. Yeah.
Proper pirate outfit. Yeah. So you just have to be really careful. But I think it comes back to from them, listen from them, and also learn together.
Yes.
Yeah. I spend a lot of time, like, I don't know about that either. Should we look it up?
Yeah.
And going on, like, even if it's on my phone and just like looking stuff up together, because then when you're working, one of my favorite sort of expressions is that a demand shared is a demand halved. So as soon as you're like,
I haven't heard that. I love that.
Yeah. If you're doing something together, and I think we can all relate to that. If my husband and I do chores together in the evening, they don't feel quite as big. Can you imagine if my husband said to me, you need to go and wash up, dry up, wipe the table, I'm just going to sit here.
Yeah.
I turn to F off,
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So we do all those things. Again, why would somebody want a different approach in a learning environment?
Yeah.
Doing stuff together, you're learning together, it's reciprocal, it's shared. And also, when you are working things out together and you get to the end of that learning journey together, it's, I feel like this is amazing. Look what we've created together. So it's just,
I love
for
that.
me, it's just such a lovely way to work.
I agree. And that it's funny because I'm just thinking where I have some students where I'm like, you write a sentence, I'll write a sentence.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking, I think I do a lot of that naturally. And sometimes that's my challenge because I've worked with so many different children. I tend to do things, and it's not till I'm talking to people on the podcast, I'm going, oh, that explains why when I sit with the kids and we do it like this. But even for some of my PDAs who like to work with a friend, that makes sense. That then takes the stress out of it.
Exactly. And then I've seen this I do a lot of school observations. I go into a lot of schools and observe and do feedback sessions. Sometimes like the child I'm observing with PDA will turn to their friend to work with them, and the teachers, work on your own, please.
No.
Like, why?
Yeah.
Surely all the best ideas ever in the world have had some sort of collaboration and group work. Like, why?
100%. I'm thinking one of my little PDAs, he was only 6, but he had a big shutdown because he didn't get the partner he wanted. And I think he co-regulated with that little boy, his friend. And I think we can't underestimate for some of our children that special friendship is very important.
Absolutely.
And often too, as people worry, are they going to burn the friendship out? We've all burnt friendships out. Like, why are we worrying ahead of time? Like, people get ahead of things. I think sometimes we get too far ahead instead of being in the moment. It's working now. Let's just work on it now. My experience of PDA and ODD, and we'll come to that in a minute, but is you can have good and bad days and the fluctuations, but when you have a good day, just enjoy it. Don't worry about tomorrow yet.
Exactly. I think you have to take every day as it comes. You absolutely have to pick your battles. And something else which is so important is you might have a really bad day. That young person absolutely needs a fresh start the next day. I get so upset and angry when I hear that a child, again, not just children with PDA, like something's happened at school, there's a sanction, and then they've got to wait to the next day, or even like a few days to get their punishment. I'm like, how does that work? Like, can you imagine going to work and being told, oh, you did something wrong today, so when you come in next Tuesday, there's going to be a sanction. Yeah. It's a lot of it is just really common sense. I think a lot of it for teachers is unlearning actually a lot of the stuff that you've been taught. And that was very much the case for me. Like, I'd done so much autism training. I know I did a postgrad in autism. For me, working with PDAs was very much about forgetting all of that, like forgetting all the kind of like visual timetables, the now next boards, the structure, the routine, and I know there's a question on that.
Yes.
And not forgetting it completely, but just thinking, just almost like parking it and thinking this young person
So
needs something
that's
different.
why we both were thinking of that question on Facebook at the same time. I feel like we've known each other forever. Like we can, because we're talking from the same, singing from the same songbook. Is that what
yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So what do we do instead of our now, next, later, and our visuals?
Okay, so I think I actually wrote, and I do use a lot of analogies, like in the book when I'm training, and I actually got asked about this exactly a week ago. I was doing some training, and I was explaining that somebody who is PDA is still autistic. Okay, there does need to be some kind of structure in terms of some predictability about what's going to happen, because if there isn't, that in itself can cause anxiety. But within that structure, there needs to be a lot of autonomy, and that word autonomy is so important for people with PDA. So the analogy I came up with in the training, and it just came to me, was when I go on holiday, I need to know where I'm going, where I'm staying, the dates, the flights, how long I'm there for. Those things are all really important. So that's my structure and my routine. But when I'm on holiday, I like to have a lot of autonomy. And what I wrote about is, can you imagine going on holiday and someone banging on your door every morning saying, you're getting up at 6 this morning, you're going to this beach, you need to wear this bikini, you need to go to this restaurant at lunchtime, and you need to eat this food, and then this evening you need to go to this restaurant and you need to be in bed by this time. Yeah, like that wouldn't be a holiday.
That is such a good analogy. I love it.
So within the learning environment for someone with PDA, you still need to offer them, there does seem to still be some structure and routine. And also within a school environment, a child can't say, I'm going to take my lunch now, 9 o'clock in the morning. But within that, you can still offer them a lot of autonomy. Would you like to start with this piece of work or this piece of work? Would you like to work on your own, or would you like some support? Even do you want to write, or shall I write?
Yes.
So within the structure that is needed, you still need to offer a lot of autonomy.
Yeah. And for people listening, I call them real choices. They've probably heard me talk about that a lot. It's not like they're going to do their work, but do you want to start with question 1 or question 2? Do you want to start with your maths or your writing? Do you want to start with, but they're real choices. Don't just make it very broad, because then the child will choose something that you didn't mean. And I think that's where we have to remember, you can't make the child to understand what's inferred. You still need to give them some clear choices. I always give the example in The Ultimate Guide. Anna Tallerman's a mum and I wrote a book together, and she would say to Daniel, do you want to do your homework at 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock? So he was going to do his homework, but there was choices around it. And I don't know if that's if I'm explaining well, but it's you're saying you're going to go on holiday, but you can choose what you do when you get there. So
exactly. Yeah.
We're going to do our homework, but you can choose when you do it and where you do it. Like she would go, would you want to do it at the kitchen table or at your desk? And just offering those kids, because a lot of teachers will say to me, I don't have time. I would say that giving those quick choices takes no time at all.
I don't think it takes any time. No,
it's really quick.
I think you do have to be very careful with choices. This is something I talk about, choices, a lot, and I don't even know that I'm doing it. Somebody commented once, they said, Laura, you're really good at using all that choice language. I said, oh, I don't even know I'm doing it. It just comes naturally to me. You do only ever a choice of 2, because too many choices is very overwhelming and that becomes a demand.
Yes.
But also, again, this is an example I use in my training. I don't eat meat. If someone says to me, Laura, do you want a ham sandwich or a chicken sandwich? I'm not going to eat either of those things because they're presented to me as a choice. If someone says, Laura, I've got some cheese, or would you just like some bread and butter? Do you know what I mean? You've got to,
and 100%, because like some children I wouldn't even be doing homework, but with Anna and Daniel, that was so that was within. And but even cleaning up after dinner, Anna would go, are you going to stack the dishwasher or put the rubbish out? Not help pack away after dinner, because that's a demand, right? And then so having those clear choices, because I think this is where I confuse people too, because I say no choice is a good choice for children with autism. And what I mean by that is when we say choose a topic, what did you do on the weekend? They're just too broad a choice.
Too broad, yeah.
But 2 choices is clear. So one of the, and this is completely random and you can tell me you don't know, because one of the struggles that we have with many of the children, young children, is that going to the toilet can be seen as a demand.
Absolutely.
Have you got any hints around that?
Yeah, I think toileting is something I get asked about a lot. I think that can be a demand. It can also be a sensory issue as well, that the child maybe doesn't feel when their bladder is full. I've worked with children that have wet themselves, soiled themselves because they're so engrossed.
That's right. And my listeners would have heard me talk about that so much. So I normally make it a toilet routine, not so I take children regularly, but then some of my families will say a timer is going to set their child off. So
exactly, because the timer feels like pressure. I think this is where you could offer some choice, but this is where the natural consequences come in as well. So I went to the toilet before I came and did this podcast. Okay, even though I didn't really need to go, because the natural consequence would have been, if I didn't go to the toilet before the podcast, I would have had to have stopped the podcast and excused myself to go to the toilet. And then that would have made the podcast less good quality. So it's talking around like that. So it's saying things like, oh, as a parent, you could say, I'm going to go to the toilet before we get in the car to travel to Granny's house, because I don't want to have to stop the car on the way, because I don't know if there's a nice clean service station or something like that. Or as a member of staff in a school, I'm going to go to the toilet before I go out to break time, because I don't want to waste my break time going to the toilet. So again, it's about talking about what you would do and then the natural consequences, and then they might just pick up on that.
Yeah, 100%. So it's funny. It's exactly what I told a parent today of a PDA 6-year-old. I said exactly that. I said, what I'd be doing is, it's time to go to school. Oh, I'm going to go to the toilet before we go. Do you want to, come with me? Because then we don't want to have to go to the toilet when we get to school because you find them smelly, like just context. But also you're talking through the problem solving. And I think sometimes talking that problem solving out loud, we don't know where there's a toilet on the way, or like talking that through can be really powerful, because so many of our children don't get that feeling to go to
the And then you can also, again, for younger children, you can make it into like a game, like who can do the longest wee? Who can get to the bathroom first? I bet you can't hop to the bathroom like on one leg or something like that. I bet you can't do a wee standing on one leg or whatever it is. So again, and I think with all these kind of like approaches and strategies, it's also really important to mix it up, because PDAs are so smart. They will clock when you are using a strategy, and they're like, I know what you're doing here.
One of my favorite sayings, and it is so funny because we're just really talking from the same thing. So I apologize to my listeners who have listened to a lot of episodes, because I've heard Sue say this before, but Laura and I have never met, so she doesn't know all of these things. So one of my favorite things is strategies wear out, but they wear out twice as fast for ODD and PDA. So they wear out, but they're going to wear out quicker. So can you explain the difference between PDA and ODD for people?
Yes. So ODD, oppositional defiant disorder, is not an autism spectrum condition. That is one of the biggest differences. So a young person is unlikely to have the same kinds of social communication differences. They may not have any sensory needs. One of the biggest differences and the most important differences is that recognition of hierarchy and authority. As I mentioned earlier, a child with PDA doesn't really see authority, whereas a child with ODD absolutely does. And in my experience, a child with ODD will refuse to do something that they are told by somebody that they perceive to be in a position of authority, like a teacher or an adult, like a parent, whereas in a peer group, they might not have any kind of need for control at all. The need for control it's the need for control and autonomy that is so important to someone with PDA. That's not what it is with an ODD. That need for control with an ODD is more, you're not the boss of me just because you're an adult kind of thing. So again, I've got an analogy to help explain this, which I use in my training.
Yes. I might steal this one, Laura.
I'm sure some of your Australian listeners will understand this more than my UK listeners. So we don't have too many poisonous spiders in the UK. We think we've got one, but a lot of I don't like spiders at all. So if someone came up to me and said, "Hi, Laura, I've come to your training session today, but I brought my pet spider. His name is Sid. He's not poisonous, but I just need you to hold him for me while I'm doing the training? Is that okay? Obviously, that's not going to happen. There is no way that I could do that. Okay. Even though I want to keep the person that's come to my training happy and I want them to have a good training experience, I can't do it. There is nothing that can make me sit and hold a spider like that. I can't do it. So that's PDA. It's can't, due to anxiety and fear, even though it might appear irrational because the spider's not dangerous. If someone came up to me and said, "Hi Laura, I've brought a spider to your training session. Would you mind just holding it for me while I'm doing your training?" And I say, "No, hold your own spider. Why should I do it?" And I've no fear of spiders at all. I'm just thinking, no, I'm not doing it. You hold your own spider. That's more ODD. That's I won't do it. Another really important distinction is that for me, my PDAs often want to do the things that they've been asked to do and they can't. And there's a brilliant video by the PDA Society, which was released about 4 years ago. And it's got lots of different quotes from people talking about their PDA. And there's a quote in there from a little girl, and she says, "When you ask me to do something, I will think lots of different excuses because I don't want you to be disappointed in me." And that is so important to understand, that often PDAs desperately want to do the things that they want to do, but they can't. That's not ODD. ODD, they don't care if you're upset that they can't, you don't do what they've been asked to do. Sorry, they don't do what you've asked them to do. They don't care. No. They're like,
yeah. And I think that is absolutely brilliant. And also, hopefully people listen to the podcast with Eliza where she talked about
the
book on, I always get it around the wrong way, can't
family experience.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Yes, she's got two. So, the can't not won't. Yeah. And that again is so important.
So important to understand. And I think that is the perfect analogy to understand ODD and PDA. However, I still find some of the same strategies overlap. Like some of the things.
Do you know what? I honestly think that whether you are in a school environment or a home environment, I honestly think PDA strategies and approaches are like gold star. I honestly do. I've got two boys. They're quite grown up now. They don't have PDA. My eldest son is ADHD. My youngest son just had a lot of anxiety when he was younger. He wasn't able to go to school for a long time because of his anxiety, but he's not PDA. PDA approaches work with children because they're so respectful. If I went in my son's bedroom and said, "Bedtime, it's time for you to go to bed now," I'm going to get like kickback. I don't do that. I would go in my son's bedroom and say, "Hey, Finn, it's getting late. Do you think it'd be a good idea to go to bed in 10 minutes or do you want me to come back in 20 minutes and turn the light out?" He's always going to say, "Oh, 20 minutes, please, Mum."
Yeah.
But again, giving him that choice and that autonomy and treating him as an equal always had a better outcome. So I think for me, we can learn so much from the way that people with PDA need to be supported.
100%.
It's just a nice way to work with someone.
Exactly. And honestly, that's why I'd encourage all schools to get your book, because I think there'll be a lot of students who these strategies will work with, who they've tried lots of other things that haven't worked. Because when I look through your book, I'm like, okay, yeah, I do that. And I like the weaving the interest in, not like forcing it to be like using humor. So important with our kids. There's so many wonderful things in the book. But what I would really like to say with people with hopefully this podcast, and if people get the book, I think it's going to give educators the confidence that they can do it. And I think a lot of the time we're so exhausted and we start to second guess ourselves and we think, I can't do this. But the truth is we can. And I think just having, and I'm hoping this podcast today will make people feel like they've sat there nodding, going, oh yeah, I do that one, or I can give that one a go. And I really hope what people take away is what you started off with, that if you are a little bit scared of this child, sorry, I did warn Laura that my cat was going to come in because she thinks she's a podcaster and she's just come in. But I really hope that people listen to this and really feel like that's not that hard. I can try that. Do you want to do it in 10 minutes or 20 minutes? That's just so simple. So simple.
Yeah, it's not hard.
No, it's not hard. And I think that's what I'd like people to really take away. And coming from it's not hard will put you in a better mind space, whatever, to actually have that autonomy and work together. So thank you for your time. I knew this wouldn't be a good 30-minute podcast because there's so much we had to talk about. And I just really appreciate it. And I appreciate all you're doing and all your work and writing. And I encourage people to follow you on Facebook as well because I get a lot of good tips. Yeah, it's amazing.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
I absolutely love doing this podcast with Laura. I learned so much from Laura in this podcast. After we recorded this, I asked her to create a 2-hour course for my community. The course goes to a whole new level of understanding. It gave me so many tips, strategies, and understanding. I literally sat in that 2-hour course going, oh my goodness, how did I not know this earlier? Now, since the course has been out, we've had so many people do the course, and the feedback has been incredible. 945 5-star reviews. It's a 2-hour course that is jam-packed with tips and strategies. But as Scott said, I now have a deeper understanding of PDA and how to support my students better. Highly recommend this course. Laura, this course is a must-have for any educator. The practical strategies offered are easy to implement and highly effective. How good is that? Sorry, it said Laura's course. That was Michael who said that. I was just rereading it going, how could that be? Emily, this course transformed my teaching approach. The insights into PDA were invaluable and have made a significant difference to my classroom. And so it goes on. So I highly recommend Laura's course. It is on sale at the moment. And if you miss the sale, I am so passionate that people do this course. Just email my support team and say, Sue, I'm a podcast listener, and Sue said I can still have the sale. So I promise you, we will give you this sale. I am so passionate about people doing this course because I get teary, but I know what a massive difference this information has made to so many of my community. So many people that I do one-on-one consults and uplift programs with have implemented this. I mean, I've had children who were having like 2-hour meltdowns be completely, the staff just approaching it differently, staff that were burnt out, feeling inspired. And I love it because when I do these like one-on-one Zooms, that staff going, oh, I did this and this happened, and they get so excited and I get excited too. But really this PDA unlocks a real understanding in many of why certain strategies don't work, but also why other ones do work. So I highly recommend you consider doing the 2-hour PDA course. You can watch it anywhere, anytime, but most people binge it because it's so good.